Decker's Nursery. Today we're going to talk about something that I really get very passionate about, and it happens to be the beginning of November. Last night we appear to have had our first frost. Decker's sits a little low, so got a little cooler last night, and we did see some icing up. So at this time of the year, there's a lot of changes happening in our landscapes, and a lot of it brings on beauty that many of us forget about until it's upon us. So today what I've done is I've gathered some of my favorite fall performing plants. I actually had to stop myself because there were so many to choose from, and I wanted to share them with you. I think a good place to start is, like, first of all, I'm standing in front of what's called a red maple. That's the common name, or October Glory. This is a very popular shade tree simply for the reason that it's a reliable performer. Each year the leaves turn a brilliant red or orangish red, and it's not that they're going to be the same color every year, but this plant has been propagated for that feature. And a lot of times people get them confused with the Japanese maple, which they also call a red maple. So that's why we try to use the Latin names or botanical names. So this is actually an Acer Rubrum. Rubrum means red in Latin, and this is Acer Palmatum, which is a Japanese maple. So we're going to come back to this in just a moment, but just to make you aware, the reason that plants go through this leaf change, it's all part of their physiological process that puts them into a dormant state. So all of the leaves through the growing season are green because they're filled with chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the primary element for making photosynthesis. So as the days get shorter, temperatures get lower, the plants recognize it's time to dissipate. The chlorophyll dissipates and it changes. They use it in the form of nitrogen and they store it for use next year. As the chlorophyll dissipates, the true pigments of the leaves become apparent and they give us these different colors. So, I happen to have grabbed mostly plants that are turning reds and orange and scarlets. That means that there's a high amount of carotenoid pigment in their leaves. The other element is anthocyanins, which is most prevalent when a plant turns yellow. And these change from year to year depending on the condition of the tree, the health, the vigor. So it's not something that you really have to get concerned with, and it's not an indicator of a problem if they don't turn the color that you're expecting. But it's kind of neat to know why it happens. And the other thing that happens as the chlorophyll dissipates, and this is a common question, you'll see a lot of lesions on the foliage. And these are pathogens that have been on the leaf all year but have been masked by the chlorophyll. So it's not uncommon for that to occur. We get a lot of people stopping in, and hopefully that'll give you some peace of mind. It's a completely benign pathogen, has no impact on the overall health of the plant. So, and the plants I grabbed today really aren't showing any of that, but I just want to let you know, if you do happen to see that, it's not something to get concerned with. So this year has been spectacular. We've had really good rainfall. The temperatures are right around normal where they're supposed to be. Cool evenings, warm days, and the plants are performing optimally. So here on Long Island, a lot of the established mature trees like the oaks and the maples, they haven't started to even change yet. Some are, but it's probably still another couple weeks till like the oak trees start to turn colors. And you'll notice sometimes the oaks will just turn brown and shed. Some years they may turn a scarlet red and shed. So, and it's all related to those pigments that I was talking about before. So anyway, let me take you through some of these plants. So when you're designing a landscape, and this is what I'm hoping to incentivize some of you to see a plant today that you can use in your landscape. And what it does, it adds interest for a long, so now you're enjoying your landscape later into the season. And you know, we talk about fall elements earlier in the season, but they really don't come to light until now when they're most, you know, they're making their show for you. So anyway, let's start. I talked to you about the October Glory. There's a lot of different varieties of Acer Rubrum, Autumn Sunset, and the list goes on. And they all have varying amounts of the carotenoids that make the colors a deeper or darker red. The nice thing about the Acer Rubrum, it's reliable. It gets that color almost every year. It would be a very abnormal condition if it didn't occur. And it happens about the same time as every other plant is changing. So we've recently had a customer come in because hers hadn't changed colors yet. So we just explained it's a little early. I'm quite confident everything's going to work out fine with that. So this is the Acer Rubrum, Acer Platanoides. This is one of the most popular plants in landscapes, and it's a Japanese maple. And any of you that have shopped for Japanese maple know they come in a burgundy color or a green leaf. And the burgundy foliage is the most popular because it gives you contrast throughout the growing season. What I want you to be aware of, the green leaf maples have the most spectacular fall foliage. So this is actually a coral bark maple. The leaves are green through the growing season, and they take on this beautiful gold color. This is consistent from year to year. But the big feature on this is the stems will actually turn fire engine red as the winter progresses. So the leaves are going to shed, days will get shorter, temperatures will get lower, and a lot of this new tissue will turn fire engine red, very similar to the red twig dogwood. So this tree will take on this color of red later in the season. So this is a red twig dogwood. I enjoy using these as accent pieces when I do a mass planting. I just like to pop a few in. So on a snowy winter day, you know, you're looking out the window and you have snow here, and this big burst of red stems stands out like a sore thumb. And it's just a really nice treat. And now you're enjoying your landscape into the winter with both of these plants, which should be the objective for many of us. So contrary to the red twig dogwood, we have the yellow twig dogwood. Okay, so this plant is a little more mature, and you'll see it's taking on some brown. As the stems get older, they'll take on that woody appearance, and you can correct that with pruning. You always want new growth coming up because that has the most color. So you have the red twig and the yellow twig dogwood are nice fall winter accent shrubs. So these will get 4 to 5 foot tall, but they can be managed with just consistent pruning. They're very forgiving plants, okay? Some of the other shrubs that are nice to use in your landscape, and these are larger shrubs as they mature. This is a witch hazel. Now, some of this browning, that's to be expected, but you can see this scarlet color. So this is not a native witch hazel or hamamelis. The variety is Diane. It's actually propagated. One of its features is the fall foliage. But the other nice feature about this plant, this is one of the first shrubs to bloom each year. And it has flowers very similar to forsythia, and it's a big pop of yellow flowers in early March, just as the growing degrees are starting up. So this shrub can get quite large, almost to tree form. And again, you can prune this, but don't try to keep it small. Give this plant room to mature. The other one is viburnum. So for some reason this year, all of the viburnums are taking on a orange or reddish color, and that's not consistent. But and this is one of the reasons I'm talking to you about it. Like it's dependent upon weather and climate and humidity and temperature. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. But when I walked by this double file viburnum, I really wanted to share it with you because this has magnificent flowers in June. Again, it's a nice large shrub. I use it at my house as a screening plant because it gets so dense, and even in the winter when it loses its leaves, I have privacy. So those are two of the larger flowering shrubs. Many of you will know this plant as a PJM rhododendron, and this is another early bloomer. The flowers are pink. They're one of the first flowers you see in March or early April. And this year, the older foliage, the 2-year-old foliage, took on this scarlet color. Now remember, this foliage will shed next year as the plant grows, but this is quite a treat this year in any landscape. And you use PJMs the same way you would use an azalea or any other rhododendron. So, but this is one of the rhodies that blooms much earlier in the year. Just a fun plant. So in that category, in the ericaceous category, you have, this is a deciduous azalea. So this plant grows in the swamp, is its natural habitat. It's a native plant. Beautiful flowers in June. The pollinators love this, and this year it's been very kind and it's giving us a nice orange color. So one of the things you'll get from this today is conditions have been very favorable for fall color. So things that we don't see every year are actually becoming apparent. So it's a nice time to share them with you. You know, one quick thing on the pigments. The pigments are what give the plants their genetic predisposition. They attract wildlife, they attract pollinators. Like the azalea is very important to pollinators, and the carotenoid tends to attract more of the caterpillars and bees than perhaps a yellow twig or red twig dogwood. They both have similar pigments, but in different percentages and ratios. So there's a lot of behind the scenes activity related to pigments, and that's why, you know, it's great to look at them, but they have a very important part in the overall lifestyle of the plant as well. So one other plant, a nice ornamental shrub I wanted to share. This is called Itea. This plant is continuously underutilized. I'm going to start doing these videos more often. This one will come out 2 or 3 times next year. Magnificent fall color, very reliable with the coloring. This happens every year. Has panicles of white flowers in June. It can take a little bit of wet soil, like if you have a damp area, it can tolerate that a little bit better than most plants. So Itea virginiana is a great plant to consider for your landscape. You can use it in mass, like in several together, or just spot them around the property. So one quick thing I wanted to share, blueberries. So for those of you in the Pine Barrens, the native blueberry, you'll see it's an understory plant, and sometimes you'll see it for miles as far as the eye can carry. And we're a little late on this plant because it turns early, but the natural color for blueberry is to turn red in October. So if you get the timing right, it's quite a show if you're in the Pine Barrens area. Spirea is a very popular landscape shrub for the flowering. It's an easy plant to contain. This is one of the new varieties. It's called Pop Rocks. It's been propagated to stay small. Some Spirea will get 4 or 5 foot. This will stay like 2 or 3 foot. But I was amazed at the fall color this year. I don't think this is one you can count on every year. Usually Spireas will turn yellow, but I thought it was a fun one to share, and also a nice accent piece for any flower, for any shrub bed. One last semi-evergreen is Mahonia. Okay, so this is just starting its performance. Starts at the bottom, and you can see the lesions on the leaves I talked about earlier. So this is all very normal. They've been on the leaves all year, had no impact on the plant, but they become visible as the chlorophyll dissipates. So and now we're starting to get a little bit more up in here. Beautiful yellow flowers in the summer, and this plant's going to turn beautiful red, going to be completely red, and it drops its leaves very late and has a very attractive bark for the winter. So, okay, so these are some of the primary shrubs I wanted to share. Briefly, no landscape is complete, in my opinion, without a holly. So I wanted to share, this is a new variety from Rutgers. They hybridized this. It's called Red Beauty. It's a blue holly in the blue holly family. It's desirable because it produces so many berries. So it flowers proliferously in the spring. The pollinators are attracted to it because of the pigments that it has. And those berries stay well into the winter until the birds decide that they're pretty tasty. So that's a plant that I've been using a lot because of its winter interest, fall and winter interest. It's also very manageable. Hollies are manageable. You have to give them some room, but you can prune them and contain them, you know, if you're diligent about it. Don't try to cut them hard. Do a little bit of pruning each year instead of waiting till it's way too large and trying to make it too small. But they are a very forgiving plant if you maintain it well. But if you have room to just let it grow, that's always the best. And each year you can cut it for Christmas decorations, or it's just a spectacular winter landscape plant. So anyway, I prioritize trees and shrubs today. Those are the most prevalent plants when it comes to leaf change because they're deciduous. I hope I've given you some things to think about for fall. So maybe you're not in the planting mood right now, although it's a great time to plant. When you're here in the spring, ask about the fall performance of some of the plants. Maybe it's something you can start to introduce and start to extend the growing season or your enjoyment of the landscape later into the year. All right? So I want to thank everybody, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the garden.